I'm going to try to explain simple indexed table view sample and modify it. This example looks like this. It's a simple indexed table view. And you see on the right side there's a index, and it's a very long table. See, if I scroll it, how A's, and then as soon as I come into B's, B scrolls up, and now B is gonna stick as I move up. Now it's, see how it goes from A to Z. If I'm looking for something that starts with an S, I can click on S and it'll jump over there. So that's the indexed showing up on the right side, and the table looks like it's grouped, only that as I scroll up the group S is going up, and now there you go, and now S is going to stay there until the T's show up. In order to show all these, it has to be a very long list with all the letters of the alphabet. So they're using a built-in class for the time zone. And the lot of the code in here is, working with the time codes and fetching them out. But the index table code, I'm gonna focus on that and explain also what is the structure of the data should be to make something like this. Now, very first, I'm going to start modifying it. Root view controller. The root view controller, one technique that we have been working on is that the interface is usually in a separate file, root view controller.h. The code is in root view controller.m. But this is their Apple's sample, and this is the old style where the interface is right within the M file, and there's also a .h file. So we want to get rid of it, be consistent. I'm going to cut it from here and put it there. These two variables, and these two variables are, I'll come back to it in a second. One reason they were there is because the section array and the collation are private. So you could actually keep it there, but I am going to show a different, I'm going to make it not private because they have already shown how to make it private. Now I can run it and it still works. These two variables, mutable array and collation, are not private now, and these are key variables. There's of course the mutable array called sections array, mutable array called time zones array, and a localized indexed collection called a collation, and there's a public method called configure sections. Time zones, sections array, collation. Since they are defined here, I'm just gonna keep them here. So now I can close it and start working on. Start with the main window. The main window looks like this. Windows Simple Index. Now in the root view controller is the data source. You see it's going to have all the necessary functions for the table view data source and delegate methods. The table view that we are going to see, simple indexed table, its data source and the delegate methods are in root view controller.m. Number of sections in table view number of rows in section, cell for row at index path. Also, section related methods, the A, B, C, those sections, retrieve the section title. So the section related methods are also going to be in here. Titles for header in section, section index titles for table view, section for section index title, did select row at index. We have set the data array and configure the section method and the configure sections method. I'm gonna delve deeper into these methods in a second. Simple indexed table view app delegate, that is just application did finish the general things, root view controller, navigation view controller, and time zones. From the NS time zones, known time zones is gonna get it into an NS time zones array, time zone names array, immutable array, time zones, mutable array alloc init with capacity, time zones count. So a mutable array with an initial capacity that is the same as the number of elements in the time zone. Now there's a for loop for time zone. In time zone names, it's gonna say NS array, name component, time zone separated by string slash. The time zone itself isn't needed, so that's what it's doing. It's then in the time zone, it's adding that object, just getting the ones that is that. That's all. It's going to loop through and fill in time zones. Root view controller time zones array is going to be set now to time zones, and it's going to release it. That's all that's going on in there. And all that, as I said earlier, is just going, we need a very long list that has all the words with all the alphabets in it. And that's why all this is being done, but it has nothing to do with the logic to create an indexed array. But after you see how this array is going to be shaped, you can make your own. Of course, it's going to be different. There's a time zones wrapper class. It allows you to init with time zone, name of the components, and it's a class to hold time zones. Now rest of the technique is going to be same. If I was to change anything, I would start with a storyboard. On the storyboard, I would start with a table view controller, but they have already done that here. So the table views source code is in here. Now what I'm going to do is set some breakpoints. View did load method, and you see the configure sections. Configure sections is being called from set time zone arrays, and that method is being called. I'm going to set some breakpoints and trying to troubleshoot it, find out who's calling what. So this is called from this new. Who calls this one? That's what I'm going to troubleshoot in front of you right now. Here we go. I'm going to step over it. Step over. Configure sections. Now where does it go? Here you go. It's being called from the Simple Indexed Table View app delegate. So I'm going to set a breakpoint there, restart it. There you go. It's going to just loop through that thing. Root view controller time zone time is equal to time zones. Step into. See, set time zone. There is a set method designed for the set time zones array, and that's why it's calling. It has nothing really to do with the simple index table. It really confuses it, but you can see that it's automatically it's the set. Okay, let me step out of it. Time zones array. By default in Objective-C, there's got to be a set time zones array method. So step into, we call it pragma, set the data array and configure the section. It's predefined where you can override and do your own thing. That's what's going on over here. I could have done it a different way in the view did load method. Now the configure sections method is being called over here. It's just looking at the data array, and in that array it's going to do a whole number of things. Section array is building a section array. So I'm going to say self.section array, self.section array, new section array. So new section array, here is the self section array. You see, that's how it looks like. Section array has 26 objects for each alphabet, 1. So 0 would refer to A, 1 would refer to B, and so on and so forth. Now within A, there are 0 to 27 objects. The first object is Abidjan. The 0 is holding objects that start with an A, and the very first of them is Abidjan. And the next one is Accra. So all of that logic went in here, and that's really not that important. But you could have, if you want the index table, you would have an array like this, which will have 27 items, 0 to 27. A would be in the first element of the array. The first element of this array will hold another array. No, actually that's not right. The first one, yeah, the first one is holding another array which has 25 objects. The 0 is array in itself. The very first is consists of the time zone wrapper, local name string, and an NS object. So you can make fill in your own values here. You could have in here your own anything 0 to n number of items sorted. So that's how the shape of the array is. Once you visualize it, you could build it the way you want, and we move on to next step where actually the logic is taking place to display and configure that indexed table. So next I'm going to jump into the root view controller and explain what's going on there. So the root view controller Inherits from UI table view controller. It has a mutable array, time zones array, a mutable array, sections array, localized indexed collection collation. That'll be used to figure out, array. The first element in the array is A, B, or C. When in multilingual applications, they have different collations. But if you are only using English, then you would know that you probably wouldn't need that. Configure sections method. So for the table, the delegate and the data source is root view controller M. So all the methods in there would be in this file: time zones array, sections array, collation. View did load. So here are table view, data source, and delegate methods. But before we jump into that, we need the sections. What's going on with the sections? Here you go. You see title for header in section, retval, collation, section titles, object at index, section. So it's using the collation to figure out what the title is. So the 0 figures out at the object at index 0 is A in the collation. So the main the data. Okay, so now talk about section related methods. Now the table view, data source, and delegate methods, they are the same as I've been talking about in my other tutorials. There's number of sections in the table view are they come from collation. Section titles count. Here's all the shape of it. They're from A to B, A to Z. There are 26. Number of rows in section come from, I fetch the time zones in section, which is in the sections array, object at index section. So it'll pull for the section 0, it'll pull the array at section array in the at 0 index. I'm going to set a breakpoint and try to explain that. Same thing here, which is self for row at index path. We'll see how it pulls that out. Okay, time zones in section. Sections array. Here's the sections array. It has 27 objects. Section at this point is 26. So that'll be right here, one object. There is only one time zone in with Z. Next one is, now the section is 0. There are 28 objects. And 0 is where A, where the name starts with A. And there are 27 objects where the name starts with A. Time zones count. So it'll just count that and return it. So that's what's going on there. Now here, of course, and a string cell identifier. We have talked about it in other tutorials. All this code I have talked about it. Time zone. From the time it pulls at the time zones, same technique as I just explained a second ago. Once I have that, now it's time to pull time zones. Within the time zones, here's the time zone. That's the one. And then time zone class is local name. It sets as the cell text label text, and then I have some debugging statement nslog index at path. See, right now it spits it out at 0. So which is talking about sections array. It took that and this one. See, that's how it's working right now. It's pulling that one out right now. Next one would be 1, which is next right here. This one is pulling out Accra. If I pull that out, time zone dot local name, here you go. See, Abidjan, Accra, and on and on. So that's how this whole thing is working. I'm going to rewrite this application using a storyboard. So I'm going to first of all create an application based on a project style of simple application. Single view application. Go to the storyboard, delete the one that's in here and drag a table view controller back in here. Get the time zone wrapper class from the other project. Create a view controller that is a subclass of UI table view controller. Back in the storyboard for the view controller, set its custom class to the view controller, set the storyboard ID. For the table view cell, I'm gonna select basic type and identifier type as cell, very important. In the view controller, I'm going to define these, bring in the 3 properties from the other sample application that I discussed, and the configure sections. Then I just basically brought in the whole of the code in here, plus whatever this code was in the app delegate, I brought that back in here like this. Like so, from here there. This was in the app delegate in the other, I brought it here in the view controller. Made it simple. In the set time zones array, I just type these 2 lines. This thing doesn't work as it does in the old program. Time zones array is equal to new data array, self configure sections. And everything else just fell into place. Just like that.